Colleagues, friends, and those that are listening, it's my privilege to be here with track five, and it's to do with training and coaching. So, firstly, the slide that you can see in front of you, I promise you, it's not an eye test. It's just something visual, and for those who are able to zoom in, it just shows the complexity of our business and how fantastically well we carry out that complexity. These are all the things that go on around an aircraft landing and taking off. So our business is very complex and it has so many influencing parts, and obviously ULDs being one, and in our eyes, very important one, but in many eyes, something that's overlooked far too often. So the point I've got here on the left, what priority does ULD care or ULD awareness get within the overall landscape of key or critical actions, is very low indeed. Now, this slide, again, an awful lot of information on there, but it's all about motivation and engagement of employees and what happens when you do engage and motivate people, and clearly what happens if you don't. And there are so many things that are affecting our business now, which have been covered in the other tracks. Everybody's aware of what's happened as we come out of COVID. We've got craziness in the Ukraine at the moment. We've got so many things going on. Our industry, whilst it's very robust, it seems to be continually under pressure. However, for cargo, with reduced capacity, it's something that's got a very positive outlook now for the next couple of years. So I want people, please, anybody that's listening, motivation and engagement is so important. Now, some key facts, just in general about the industry. So training is probably the last thing on anyone's mind at the moment. And then, is ULD management interesting? And I would suggest it's probably not a first date topic to impress. But what are the priorities of our business? So at the moment, it's bums on seats. There's a huge lack of people to fill the return to business profile, bringing back better and making it matter. So everybody needs to recruit to satisfy demand and rapid regrowth. This bring back better is a chance for everybody to forget the legacy of issues and do things much, much better, much leaner, doing it faster with less and making it matter a lot more. Now, in many cases, there's going to be a lack of induction. There's going to be a lack of structured training, a lack of on-site coaching, and definitely a lack of on-the-job training and shadowing. So all in all, the short to medium term will be strained at best and fragmented at worst. Now, will this pressure be sustainable? And what will this pressure do for ULD? Understanding and awareness. In my opinion, it will push it down further on the ladder. So we're not the most popular subject matter on the shelf at the moment. So what we've got to do is we've got to look at different ways now to make people appreciate and realise the importance of managing ULDs effectively. So constant contact is one way of embracing new people and new opportunities to enhance awareness of our ULD importance. The technology and value return on investment is also critical. So how do we now get ourselves noticed? Now, the purpose of this session, whilst it won't answer all of the questions, is to hold an interactive discussion or to get feedback and to determine project deliverables and requirements, along with ideas, input and feedback. So the output of this session should determine what are the expected deliverables, what are the prerequisites, what are the quick wins, what are the next steps, what are the success factors. ULD Care is focused on improving awareness, understanding and appreciation of the value of ULDs as a critical part of our business. And we would welcome this session as an interactive discussion between as many parties as possible to reach an outcome that is understood and mutually agreed by all participants. All feedback, suggestions and ideas would be more than welcome, because the well is by no means dry, but any new input is welcome. And objectives and expected or desired outcomes, opportunities to improve moving forward, risks that have already been identified, and various other critical priorities. All things that have to be taken into account as we move forward. Now, how can we improve the awareness and appreciation of the ULD as a key and integral part of our aircraft and business itself? So a few key points on what challenges we've got and a bit of an executive overview. The analysis of the business volumes and key statistics are always indicating a high profile and level of importance to our industry. Everybody appreciates at certain points the importance of ULDs and containers. However, there's still little real priority and focus. It's not something that comes to mind on all of the senior managers' itineraries, whether it be at senior management meetings or special project meetings. So key practices and implementation of basic industry process milestones need to be continually outlined and advised. Now, one area, if the ULDs are seen as part of a clean flight prerequisite, and that's introduced and advised to ensure correct use, correct serviceability checks, correct handling, correct storage, etc., there's a possibility that we'll get a higher profile. Several rounds of familiarization and coaching to be introduced and followed up at regular intervals. Now, how do we get people within a normal GHA or carrier? How do we get them to actually show interest in looking after ULDs? That's the difficult task, one that we've had for a long time, one that we've got now, and regrettably, I think it's going to be one that's going to be a lot tougher over the next couple of years. One opportunity could be to appoint local owners of the clean flight practices and identify them with focus on ULD management, and also a review of all equipment and resource and facility requirements identified and acted upon on a regular basis. So if the ULD care concept aligns with certain spot checks, zone management checks, self-assessments, and also internal audits, then we might start to get ourselves a little bit higher up the pecking order. So the basic 4C principles that are not evidenced is the level of communication has to be clear and verified by all parties as understood. And that's unfortunately lacking as it stands at the moment. The level of competence, the appreciation that there is a large gap, that needs to be explained and communicated to senior management wherever possible, whenever possible, and it keeps needing to be emphasised. The compliance level, okay, is far too low. The failures are not acceptable for anybody, but those failures don't seem to be communicated up high enough for the value of those feedback sessions to be shared. So self-assessment by all parties and data shared is crucial. And then controls, how effective is the overall controls? And I think anybody that has ever been associated with ULDs would suggest that the control is not where it should be. Now, the root cause for this is that there was and is a lack of commitment to observe the formal management requirements of effective ULD handling. There's limited evidence of management engagement. Site audits and flight reports were not followed up or actioned, and milestones and control of non-compliance issues was not maintained. So in essence, there's a legacy of complacency when dealing with ULD management. Now, one of the tasks, training and coaching. So issues that we've been discussing are the following. How do we do something differently and more effectively? What do employees on the ground actually need? Is there enough awareness of senior management and paymasters specifically? And what reference or help us to help you toolkit is available? Now, one of the things that I'm going to show at the end of the presentation is some extracts from ULD Explained, where at the end of the chapter, there's tables which give a good indication and quick checklists as to what should be done. And it's a great memory exercise or familiarization exercise or self-help guide. Do we have ULD coaches in place? How good is the dashboard of KPIs, SPIs? The outcome of this work group is instrumental to training and coaching. Because if the KPIs and the SPIs start to dip, one of the obvious outcomes is that competence isn't at the level that it should be. Now, should we link to new leadership principles? And I'm going to come to new leadership principles shortly. So from an employee survey, we should be focusing on all employees and not just those that are associated with the ULD management teams of the GHA or the carrier. So progress achieved, and this has probably been mentioned at many of the other tracks. One of them is the virtual reality training. Now, that is absolutely superb. If anybody gets the chance to have a look or to trial it, it is well worth the effort. And the two I'm talking about is the inspection of a container and inspecting a pallet and net. It's a wonderful thing to experience, and it sort of almost takes you away from what you're trying to do because it's so impressive. We also need to review alternative type training methodology to keep people interested and focused, and also in line with carriers, handling agents, we need to try and convince them to have minimum expectation documents surrounding certain positions so that the actual score on the floor approach starts to increase accordingly. And obviously ambitions moving forward is to get a full commitment as to what we are really wanting to achieve and to provide, and to identify for who and why. Now, the new way to train your staff at the moment, most training is given as a tick box exercise. Tick box exercise, and with the greatest respect, it's not the most. It's not the most effective way. And if we want to change it, we need to spend less time in a classroom, more time practically. But we also need to get away from the fact that people assume that they're competent because they get a certificate at the end of a training session. Now, those sort of certificates are nothing more than memory tests, because all they do is check that you've remembered what you've done either the previous day, 2 days, 3 days, or a week. And it's a great shame. So what we're suggesting is, if anybody's got the opportunity to look at their business and where they can either save money, where they can enhance safety issues, security issues, customer experience issues, those are the areas that are critical only. So what needs to be done then is to condense and to reduce and consolidate the training content into critical only modules, which minimizes the time away from the operation and keeps costs low. Now, that's important. Current status is very poor. Measurable. We ensure, or we should emphasize and make sure, that there's critical behavioral change that is measurable and repeatable, and that has an immediate effect on the business. That's critical. And again, the response level and the uptake is pretty poor. As far as competence is concerned, we need to not only validate the competence levels, but we need to verify it to ensure that there's an effective return on investment within 30 days. Now, that's not an unrealistic target. Once somebody has been trained effectively to do something differently that should have an impact on the business, it should be able to be evidenced within 30 days. And if it can be, and you can prove a return on investment, then senior management will start listening. And there's huge amounts of improvements and change that's available within the ULD world. Operationalize. Okay, so we operationalize the management and leadership development, building only the critical skills into the training modules and saving time and money. That's important, but again, those sort of practices are still poor. And to scale. Okay, it's important to scale the staff development across the organization, minimizing long-term spend and improving people and conserving cash. Again, that's an important issue, but the uptake is pretty poor. Now, in any business at the moment, there should be a lot more focus on new leadership learning, and also employee support or enabler acceptance. What we're trying to say here is that, how do you lead and influence a critical skill? To do so, and for different situations, you lead at home. All of us do. We lead in our personal lives, yet many of us leave this at the door when we come into work. Organizationally, some are chosen to have leadership roles, and with this comes accountability. But most people still only focus on responsibility. Accountability covers all areas of that particular job role, and anybody who's looking after operations, ULDs, is a critical element of safety, and effectiveness, good cost management, and meeting customer requirements. The ownership and results and outcomes and the need for agility and resilience during challenging times, we all appreciate, we all know. But to drive change, implement ideas and directives to create results through others, a new leadership learning exercise needs to be put into place that 100% focuses on accountability. Now, the enabler side of things is being able to take direction and responding well to leadership. And that's a critical component of being a professional employee and a member of any organization. So strategy and ideas only work if they are implemented by willing and capable individuals and teams. And we all share responsibility to be good enablers and to carry out the tasks that we know will maintain business continuity and sustainability. So being led is for everyone, even our leaders. And that's a level of responsibility that all employees need to be aware of. Now, this is a lot of different approaches to training and coaching, but it's something that if we do it well together and we do it across some of the critical elements of clean flight or the critical elements of safety, it should then start to filter down into the areas that can influence safety, influence effective on-time performance of flights, influence efficiencies and productivity, influence cost management, and influence, just reducing the impact on the environment because of wasted materials, etc., people would start, I feel, to take more of an interest in ULDs. Now, what is needed and how to implement those 4C principles into a new learning experience. The business sustainability requires a new learning experience and framework, one that generates speed, transparency, quality, and a pricing mechanism that ensures an effective return on investment for every CEO that is presented with the model. Now, if collectively the industry could start to show a consistent and a universal training exercise that was very practical and supported a return on investment after the training, and it was done centrally or through groups that agreed on the common goals, there's an opportunity then again for people to take more interest. Now, this return on investment is something that everybody's going to be looking at moving forward. It's so important, and it needs to be measured effectively, and the impact of new learning needs to be seen and experienced very early in the process. And that's why the 30-day from the training event is targeted. Competence needs to remain, so task and behavioural competence, and last in order for the results to be repeatable and ensure continuity and contingency. Formal testing between 90 and 120 days after any initial training should be done so that there is an understanding of what the level of retention of knowledge is, and not just the memory exercise previously that's been the way that we've always done training. And lastly, the focus on critical areas of the business, so having a clear purpose and a clear outcome which reflects high impact. So reduced cost, fewer days out of the office, that's what senior management will notice. If we're able to deliver a very, very effective practical training exercise, whether it be through virtual training or not, that will start to make people start to focus. If everything that we do as far as ULDs is concerned focuses on critical with important and recommended in mind, and then focuses on the 4C principles of clarity of message, competence of parties who deal with it, and good levels of compliance, then we'll start to control the issue better. Now, what that means is feet on ground to C-level validation. So that's actually letting the senior management know what's going on the ground in a very effective, open and dynamic way. And then making sure that the high level of management want to verify that the controls are in place from the top back down to the bottom. That's where an effective audit hierarchy comes in, and that's where minimum expectation documents are there to support how we change the particular focus on training for ULDs. Now, I said at the beginning that for anybody who knows about ULD Explained, I think it's a great booklet. Bob did a fantastic job. And from the first version, there was some discussion and feedback, and it was deemed a good idea to have at the end of each chapter a certain set of process references, what could possibly go wrong at that particular point, and how to prevent this from happening. So things like this are almost as effective as the actual chapter itself, because it's a fast way for people to see what can go wrong, identify if they're familiar with that in their own workplace, and then they've got ready-made solutions that they should focus on and make sure that their employees and colleagues alike have got the level of competence that's required and the backup and support. So this is the first one, which is ULD basics. Then there's storage of ULDs, which is also important. And albeit some parties are very strict in their audits, and as soon as the audit's finished, people go back to as was practice, there needs to be a little more logic and common sense approach to how this takes place, as well as moving the ULDs. Okay, so because in reality, things are done to one extreme, and in theory and in the books and on the audits, they're done to another extreme. And somehow we've got to try and come to the safest common fulcrum in the middle. Another good one is continuing airworthiness. And this is important because for anybody that's spent any time in warehouses and out on the ramp, you see some things and you wonder, my goodness me, would you treat the inside of the aircraft like that? And and do you not understand how dangerous it could be? And if not to the aircraft or lives, it still could put an aircraft out of service for a while. it could block the locks, it could damage the side of the aircraft. There's so many ways that the costs could just be immense, just because of a little bit of negligence and a lack of awareness. Chapter 5, build up and breakdown, also very important. And again, it's disappointing that in most cases, cargo agents and lead agents don't actually do an assessment of the quality of the container or the pallet, and the way they build it up, strap it, etc. Sometimes is not the way it should. So I would say there's a global misunderstanding, estimation of what is necessary to manage effectively the good use of ULDs and containers. Accessories, my goodness me, all accessories that you see that eventually end up in landfills it's shameful. And the way the accessories are handled, the way they're stored, the way they're looked after, goes from very, very good from some parties to absolutely atrocious by others. Accessories, we've covered that. Number 8, special ULD and special cargo. So that's the last one. But the message I'm giving here is that there are tools already that could help make people more aware if supervisory and management levels decided to at least focus on some of the key areas that are available to make people more aware. Now, coming to the end of this presentation, has there been answers within this? No, there hasn't. There's been reference to some of the more dynamic training that's been done, like the inspecting a container and inspecting a pallet and a net. But what I'm mainly pitching here is that anybody who's got the chance within their own environment to support what ULD Care are trying to do and the ULD management in the various organisations, it's something that we should try and do on a regular basis, and we should try and support those that are making a big difference. How do we do something differently? So we've got legacy problems, legacy interests, so we need to create the cost impact, for CEOs. So in partnership with IATA, we need to have as much infographic with high impact visuals as possible, letting people know the amount of monies that are being wasted, the amount of monies that are having to be spent on additional size fleets. We just need to start having better PR and greater marketing in every single platform, at every single opportunity. What do employees on the ground need? They need clear and simple toolkits. They need clear and simple guidelines with simple checklists. And if we can digitize it so that the results go into some sort of central data bank, we can then start to see exactly what's happening within the industry. Is there enough awareness of senior management and the paymasters? 100% no. And there's some terrible examples that can be provided. And we need some form of safety management guide that really, really puts this focus in the front of everybody's eyes and lets them realize what they can do and the big impact they can make on their own business by looking after the ULDs and containers. What reference or help you toolkit is available? We've got the ULD explained with the end of chapter tables. What I think is necessary now is to create an online awareness data bank and something that would offer the facility for any company to open it up to their employees over a period of time to do certain awareness exercises, certain competency tests, etc. So we could really start to see what the values are of the feed from those particular surveys, and then where there needs to be a more concentrated focus. Do we have ULD coaches in place? No, and not part of any unique club. It would be great to offer this to members with regular communications and information, statistics, risks, etc. Do's and don'ts. Did you know? How good are the dashboards or the KPIs and SPIs? So the outcome of this group, the work group, is instrumental to training and coaching. So if the KPI and the SPI indicators start to drop, then obviously there needs to be more competence focus. So the need to agree a standard and show is very important. Should we link to new leadership principles? 100% under cost management, efficiency, safety, and customer experience. And if those training courses can prove a return on investment for the cost of the course with the participants, all managers should welcome it with open arms. Now, the employee survey, not just from the ULD management teams, we should get a survey session done by members in time for online conference, which would have been nice if we could have done this. At the moment, we've got plenty of opportunity moving forward, and we've got a live conference hopefully coming up in September. So between now and then, it would be great to assess people's capability, awareness and understanding of those people that are associated with ULDs and containers, not just those that are tasked with looking after them. Progress achieved, the virtual reality training, options for certain support training modules, that is absolute, I've got to say, so impressive, and I would recommend everybody and anybody to have a look, and they will not be disappointed. And the links to those trainings will be available on the follow-up to this particular virtual event. Now, reviewing alternative type training methodology and minimum expectation documents to ensure that we get a better score on the floor approach. That's an opportunity to create new practical outlines, special focus for key safety and security items, actions, and also to be part of follow-up audits, checklists, spot checks, etc. So there's always that formal support and formal verification. Ambitions moving forward, get a full commitment as to what are we really wanting to achieve and to provide, and for who and why. And the entire membership should take it upon their own shoulders to collectively look at what they would be satisfied with and support ULD Care in supporting the membership. So a baseline exercise could be done with industry colleagues and client organizations, and then the collective outcome could be pushed up, pushed sideways, supported downwards, everywhere until we get a level of acceptance and support that's long overdue within this particular expertise area. That's the end of the slides. I'm happy to just put my point of view across. It's an absolute pleasure to be working with some of the people within ULD Care who do things voluntarily. Bob and Urs, huge passion and engagement. And when so many people are trying to do so many things for the good of the majority, it's a shame that we're not able to get all of the membership now and everybody else to come together and really start to make this something that the whole industry starts to take notice of. Because as materials are getting more expensive, as the turmoil starts to ramp up in this crazy old world of ours, it's not going to get cheaper. It's not going to be easier. So if you can see something that you can look after better, save costs, improve safety, improve efficiencies, then why don't we do it, and why don't we do it together? That's the end of my message. Thank you all for listening. And if anybody's got any questions or feedback, happy to look at them now, or you can get in touch with me anytime. And it's always a pleasure to hear from anybody who's got some good solid ideas or suggestions on how we can overcome this particular conundrum of something that's so special, high value, that people are just not taking notice of. Thank you again. Greatly appreciated.